Okay, let's start with the first talk. It's from Anna from Bulgaria, and she's talking about epigenetics.
Hi, thank you. Can I get a wireless one? Oh, thank you, since I'm a speaker. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm assuming that some of you have come here tonight because you want to meet new people, new individuals, right? And in school, we're actually taught that it's our DNA that makes us the individuals who we are. But that might not exactly be the case, like, to the full extent. If you have ever met two identical twins in your life, especially in their adult life, you have probably observed the following phenomenon. Even if these people look exactly the same, chances are they will not have the exact same personality, even if they look identically. So how does it actually happen that two people with the exact same genes have different personalities? Well, first of all, having the same genes does not necessarily mean that these genes will be expressed in the exact same way. Imagine that you're taking a class, and for this class your professor is giving you a paper that you have to read. There are about 20-30 people in the class, and it doesn't really matter, so each and every one of you gets this paper. You go home and you start reading the paper, and you have your set of highlighting markers right beside you. 4 or 5 different colors, even 20 if you want to. And you start reading the paper and you start highlighting different parts of the text, depending on the aspect of the perspective of the text, the perspective of the topic, depending on how relevant you find this certain part of it. And in the end, you have a text full of highlighted parts. So will each and every other participant of the class. And the next day, you will all have the exact same text, but with completely different highlighted patterns in it. Some may overlap, others may not overlap at all. This is exactly how your DNA and epigenetics works. Epigenetics literally means above genetics, or in addition to genetics. And the term stands for every process that alters the activity of your DNA, of your genes, without changing your DNA. So, in the example with the paper that we have the DNA as the paper, and you highlighting the parts of the text as the epigenetics, changing the activities of these different parts of the text without changing the text at all. But with DNA, what are these highlighting processes that change the activity of the text of the DNA? Literally everything you do changes the activity of your genes. Everything you eat, everyone you interact with, everyone you meet, everything you work on, work with, every city that you have visited, every city that you have lived in, changes the activity of your genes. And epigenetics still is something that is far from being truly understood or analyzed from the scientific community. People have just now started to truly analyze it. But two very fascinating features have already been indicated from the epigenetic patterns. First is that by doing all of these everyday activities that you do, you're not only changing your own gene activity, you might be changing the gene activity of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, 5 generations from now, potentially. Which also means that your ancestors have maybe had an impact on your own gene activity right now. And that could be both good or bad, depending on what they have experienced in their life. Could it have been famine, or could it have been a particularly healthy diet that has made you super healthy even without you knowing this? But we can't really know for sure. But here comes another fascinating feature about epigenetics. You can't really reverse you highlighting these paper parts, but you can reverse your epigenetics, you can reverse your gene activity. Meaning that with your everyday activities, you have the potential to reverse these unhealthy diets of your ancestors, maybe that they have had. You can reverse the epigenetic marks that your parents, your grandparents have left on your DNA with them living in an unhealthy environment, or maybe not being that physically active, And with that, you also have the great opportunity to make your children or your grandchildren healthier, even without even knowing when you're going to have these children or if you're going to have them. And that is the power of epigenetics. Thank you. Do you by any chance have any questions? Yeah.
Have you heard about constellation work by Bert Hellinger or other therapeutic measures where you try to actively change your epigenetics in that moment, not only for your children but for yourself?
I have heard about it, but I'm not an expert. So maybe if you have a specific question on that, I will try to answer it, but I'm not an expert on the topic.
I'm doing it. I just wanted to know if this was like in connection to the work.
Yes, of course. Well, I'm not an expert on epigenetics. I'm actually doing my Master's of Public Health right now, and the reason for why I'm so interested in this topic is because I'm working on dietary supplementation in pregnancy and how the diet of the mother changes the gene activity of the babies, and how the mother's potentially deficiency of macro and micro supplements could lead to the baby being obese in their adulthood, which is actually fascinating. And from a public health point of view, what actually got me into this topic is a couple of studies done on population of people that have been born soon after the Dutch famine, after the Second World War. I don't know if you know about this, but at the end of the Second World War, in Holland there was a great famine, and a lot of people were actually impacted by this, even people that were not born in this time. So researchers have found that babies who have been conceived in the time of the famine, they are observed to have a greater incidence and prevalence of chronic diseases, meaning that more of them get more and more chronic diseases, and a bigger number of them are also obese, something that is truly fascinating for a baby that has been malnourished. So to get back to your question about how you can actively change your gene activity, yes, and healthy diet and physical activity is definitely one part of why this is so important. Yeah. Great questions? Yeah, go on.
So by this logic, Usain Bolt should have a really good diet. His son should inherit his genes, right? So does that mean he could have a better potential at being the next Usain Bolt than me? Does that?
Well, he
isn't that kind of like an unfair advantage? Well, I don't want to be an athlete, but then
yeah.
Still.
I get it. It definitely is not fair. Well, what you inherit from your parents as epigenetic marks cannot be studied or analyzed with 100% certainty, because the precursors of the sperm and the egg cells actually have this cleansing process of removing everything that may alter your DNA that kind of way. But still, some marks, some highlights may still go through this cleansing process and actually be left there. Same with the Dutch famine example. These kids were actually never really affected in their lifetime by the famine, but still affected while they were in the wombs of their mothers, or even before they were conceived. So yeah, it's definitely unfair that using both children we have a bigger chance of becoming athletes than you have, but it's all in the genes, partially in the genes. Anyone else? Yeah.
How did people even find out that epigenetics exists? How can you know about this?
Well, the topic was first opened about 20 years ago. I think I'm not exactly certain about it, and there are a couple of processes that actually influence the gene activity, and the most common is methylation, demethylation of the DNA. What happens is that you have your strain of DNA, and it will not change throughout your lifetime, hopefully. And then you have these methyl groups that get attached to the DNA strain, and these methyl groups allow a group of histamines, these are certain proteins, to get attached to the DNA, and these proteins allow these part of the DNA to be active. These are the groups that tell the part of the DNA work or don't work. So this is how they actually found it. There are some studies done with mice, of course, and studies with people. I'm actually not certain if there have been done any experimental studies with people, because that would actually not be really ethical to do it. Experimental studies with people, maybe retrospectively, as with the Dutch famine.
Hands up.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.